Hey, this is Prank Kid Duelist. I wanted to go ahead and do a Ghost of the Format, a look into what ended up happening in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in the day. Now I'm going to start with November 27th, 2013. Konami announced for YCS Atlanta, Georgia, starting July 31st, 2014, top 16 players. The top 16, instead of doing a normal Yu-Gi-Oh! Bout where you would take your best deck and play against them, it ended up changing to a draft-only play. You would use the Battle Pack 2 War of the Giants Round 2. Now this was very interesting as over time, Konami came to understand that Battle Pack was supposed to be a sealed set that required skill to play. In the first set, Epic Dawn, it was a lot different. Their YCS for that time, they did have one sealed only YCS for Epic Dawn. It was in San Diego. It was super, super impactful. But as you can see, there were crazy, crazy good cards in this. And a lot of people should understand that because there were such good cards in this set, it changed how you would actually go ahead and look at this. On top of that, it was sealed and not draft. Now sealed, you get 10 packs, you build a deck of 30 cards out of those 10 packs, try and play with that. But the problem was they had such good cards in that set, and they were so short printed that only the lucky few was able to build it. Now, another interesting thing that we can look at is Battle Pack 2, Part 2. After Battle Pack 2 War of the Giants was released, they had completely nerfed it. They removed a lot of the crazy good cards in that set, stuff like the Regekis, the Monster Reborns, and the backer removal, and replaced them with a lot more mild cards. However, they still did have impactful cards, and they put in the God cards. Those were supposed to be the replacements, and they not too bad, but a lot of people looked more at these sealed events or these sealed packs as reprint packs. They wanted cards out of these sets that could be reprinted and still be semi-impactful in that meta. Now, with Part 2, they did something similar, but they added a couple of new cards and reduced it, but it didn't really change how it was played. Now, this is where the top cut was initially put. And this changed how Yu-Gi-Oh! Was played because we see Yu-Gi-Oh! As more of a, after top 16, the best players are playing their best decks. Why would we want to see the best players be the best players and not play the decks that they've become so accustomed to and have to build something? After top 16, you looked at the generic numbers and said, oh, well, and I'm just going to say based off of today, Orchest had half of the top cut. That means Orchest is the best deck. Well, it didn't give the excitement like, well, Sky Striker just got hit on the ban list, and there was only one Sky Striker in the top cut. That means Sky Striker is now so nerfed that it doesn't matter. We wouldn't have known that Sky Striker won the YCS. We would have just been like, okay, Sky Striker is about as good as Salomon Great, is about as good as Infernoid, which were in that set. Now, the interesting part about this was, though it did have that backdrop, it did have the fact where more skilled deck builders and players would be able to win YCSs more because they actually know how to play the game competitively without having to worry about incredibly powerful cards ruining how these cards are played, or incredibly stupid combos or incredibly broken effects. Stuff like, if you think now, like Cleafort Towers at that time was crazy good. Now if Cleafort Towers was completely out of the meta and it you wouldn't have to deal with Cleafort Towers anymore. Now you had to build a brand new deck and play with these assortment of random cards to try and beat your opponent. It was an interesting look, but it changed how Yu-Gi-Oh! Was played. And then finally, before the end of this draft series, Battle Pack 3 Monster League was released. Now this was 100% based around the skill of the player on their deck building builds and less on pulling the impactful cards. It was a pack full of terrible cards. And because of that, it required skill to build a deck based around these lesser than powerful cards. Yes, they used draft play, so they had information that the opponent would have and that you would have. The first card opened and pulled was the one information that you had compared to all other players. That's the important part about draft play, but you had to know what cards would be possible for players to have. That was an interesting part about draft play, but because it changed our outside look in regards to a top 16 meta matchup, we completely saw how players would be able to resolve this situation. Now, one interesting thing about this was if we implemented the draft pick again in the future, we could see the more rogue decks that we don't normally expect to end up winning the YCSs. Those players could end up winning the YCS. However, it's all up to player skill and not deck building. Well, it is more deck building and player skill, but I feel like it would require a lot more than what is needed for the game now. You know, on July 23rd, 2015, they had officially announced that you no longer had to worry about the draft series for Yu-Gi-Oh! In the top 16 cut. It changed how players actually saw this. And I really want to say that, honestly, though this was an important part to Yu-Gi-Oh! History, we should understand that this is Yu-Gi-Oh! At its finest. It required skill for deck building and playing these terrible cards, or at one point, broken cards that required luck to play. And it was very important for players to understand that there was no way that I or anybody else could see that, though it did require skilled players, it wasn't interactive and it wasn't fun. I do like the idea of a draft series YCS or a sealed series YCS. Is going in there with $20 and trying to win a YCS without having to build or bring anything else but yourself and maybe a deck box, maybe sleeves. Would be very interesting. But, it's just a ghost of a format. And hopefully one day we might be able to see this ghost again. But for right now, this is Prank Kid Duelist. I want to thank you so much for your time today. Trying to keep rogue decks meta. I hope you have a wonderful day. Hey, just a little FYI, I'm going to finish off this duel right here, just so that you guys can enjoy to see what the Battle Pack series, at least one duel, was for this. If you want to see more of this Battle Pack, I do still have Legacy of the Duelist on my PS4. I do hope that maybe, if you guys do want to see it, you might be interested in it. Other than that, again, thank you.